Today, I will speak about the legal implications of using source code from the open source community. I will stress out the importance of having a FOSS compliance process if you are a FOSS consumer. I will quickly introduce myself. I'm an open source compliance officer in the Cluj-Napoca office at Accenture. Some of you are asking yourselves if a FOSS compliance process is really needed. I will tell you a story about an interesting conversation I had with a developer 2 years ago at an IT conference. I asked him if they use any FOSS in their development, and he said, yeah, sure. Then I asked him, what are you doing to keep yourself compliant with the FOSS licenses? He told me that they look in the root of the components to search for the license file, and they take that for granted. And then I asked him, what about the rest of the licenses inside the rest of the files? And his answer amazed me. He told me that the open source community matured in the legal perspective, and the developers know about the licensing issues, and so they are all compliant. So it is safe to use FOSS from the community like they do. At that point, I thought to myself, oh boy, this guy really doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's take, for example, this open source library, HyperJax B3 version 0.6.0. It's found on GitHub. Its main license from the root of the component has a BSD2 clause license. This is a very permissive license. Basically, if you keep the license text in the source code and reproduce it in the binary version, you can do anything you want with that code. After a proper research on this component, we found out that there are several proprietary licenses inside. That means that you cannot even use that code without a license agreement, which enables you to do so. And of course, usually, users must pay for that, right? There is also code with commercial restrictions, meaning that you cannot use that code in a new product if you want to sell it. There are a total of 35 licenses inside this component, some of which are Apache License 2.0 and GPL 2.0, which are bidirectional incompatible. Now, let's try to imagine if the gentleman I talked with 2 years ago at that conference would use this library to create a new product and sell it only based on its main license. Let's just say that he will step on a lot of light bulbs. And each and every one of those broken light bulbs are possible lawsuits waiting to happen against his company. Using code from the open source community comes with risks. Unlike commercial products, FOSS rarely offers any guarantees or warranties. As a FOSS consumer, it is your responsibility to understand and mitigate those risks. Such a risk materialized in full force with the Equifax data breach announced in September 2017. This hack exposed extremely personal information of 143 million individuals. And it was possible due to a severe vulnerability in the open source library Apache Struts. They claim that it occurred in mid-May, July 2017. And this vulnerability was disclosed in March. So they had plenty of time to find this issue and fix it before the hack had occurred. There are plenty of unknown vulnerabilities floating around out there, and it makes no sense to intake known issues into your organization. We can monitor vulnerabilities and open source security risks in the National Vulnerability Database. In average, more than 10 new vulnerabilities are disclosed each day. I have now shown you some risks. Please let me introduce you to some solutions applied on real case scenarios. The FOSS governance department at Accenture started in 2010, and in these last 9 years, we accumulated an impressive amount of experience by working with different tools from the market and by working with different clients. In this first case, I present you the results of one of our teams that works for an external client. They are 16 open source compliance officers, and by working for 1 year and a half with a combination of 2 FOSS scanning tools, both based on text searches, they had the following results. When I'm referring to text-based searches, I'm referring to using simple words, a combination of words, or full text of licenses. These tools scan the text from the source code and compare it with the text from its database. In this second example, I present you the results of one of our teams that works for Accenture. This team uses a FOSS scanning tool based on code matches. This tool scans the applications and matches it with the code from its database. We can possibly identify from a 100% file match to a 2-line snippet of code. This helps us to identify those licenses that the developers conveniently forget to include in the code. So in essence, maybe it's best if you use a text-based search tool if you want deep license data, but of course, a code searching-based tool also helps us to find those licenses that are missing from the code. If I have learned anything in these years working by an open source compliance officer, is that the lack of knowledge of compliance by many of the developers that are contributing code to the community created an impressive amount of light bulbs that are waiting to be stepped on. And I strongly recommend you to use a FOSS compliance process if you are a FOSS consumer. This is the end of my presentation. I will be around throughout the conference the rest of the day. If you have any questions or if you need any ideas on how to step around those light bulbs, I'm also accompanied with 4 of my colleagues. Each one is specialized on different tools and topics. Thank you for your participation, and I wish you a good day. Thank you.